Hi, I'm Erika and I am the founder of Volition. And in June of 2024, we ran a project-based PledgeMe campaign, and I'd love to share with you some of our insights from that campaign. We set ourselves a target to raise $40,000, and that seemed ambitious. That seemed like a stretch for us. Going into it at the very beginning, I was like, yeah, we'll be able to reach that. But then at about the 2 week stage, I was like, are we going to reach this? But in the end, we did meet our target, and we exceeded our target. We raised a total of just under $44,000. It took us 24 hours to raise the first 10%, and then it took us 3 more weeks to raise the next 10%. So after 3 weeks, we were sitting at only 20% funded. There was definitely some nail-biting moments in there, and our entire project timeline was only like 1 calendar month, so around 4 weeks. And the last bulk of that funding, the balance, all came through in maybe the last 3 or 4 days. And so deadline magic is very, very real. That kind of groundswell of support and people that rally to back you on those final moments and days was incredible, and obviously we couldn't have reached our target without that. So there was a bit of work to do in managing expectations and emotions along the way, because we were anticipating that there would be this deadline magic, but we didn't want to bank on it at the same time. When our campaign got hard was right in the middle. There was good response at the beginning, and then flat, and then that groundswell, that deadline magic at the end. And so in that middle time, which is the majority of the time, it was hard. The other thing that was hard about it was the need to constantly post on social media and keep our crowd updated. For others, this might not be hard. You might be naturals at it. But for us, it was challenging. It was definitely out of our comfort zone. So that needed to take some definite focus and energy to make sure that happened. But the flip side of that is that now we are much more confident in using social media, taking videos of ourselves like this one, and getting it out there. And this connects to one of our top tips for crowdfunding, and that is to make sure that the people behind your project or behind your business, that those people are visible and present throughout your campaign, because people, your pledges, connect with people more so than whatever it is. And so this was advice given to us early on, and advice that we would pass on, or a top tip for anyone else, is to, as a founder or a project organizer, to really get out there, be vulnerable. It does mean that you need to put yourself out online in ways that you might not have been used to doing in the past, but it definitely is worth it. What did we love about PledgeMe? So when we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign, we identified that crowdfunding was right for us because we had 2 main objectives. The first objective was to have a way that we could focus people's attention and rally community. So that was our first objective. And our second objective was to obviously raise some funding, but they were definitely in that order. And what we loved about PledgeMe was how well it helped us to achieve both of those things, and how those 2 things were really married together. And we had done some marketing beforehand, we'd done some outreach, we had done some community building, but having that real focused, time-constrained campaign was everything, really, in getting other people, our community, to come on board and to rally and to support, to share with others in their networks. And that's worth far more than the value of money that we ended up raising. But we like the money too. There are 2 moments that really stand out to me from when we were crowdfunding. The first was when I attended a conference that I was already booked in to attend, and it happened to fall within the month that we were doing our campaign. And when I arrived, I had somebody come up to me that I had never met before. I didn't know them, and they just said to me, "Hi, Erika, how's the campaign going? How's Volition going?" And it was kind of unsettling and amazing at the same time, because clearly us building a crowd and getting out there was working, because people knew about it when we hadn't directly told them about it. And so the second moment that stood out is connected to that, because we started to see pledges coming through from people we didn't know, and we could not trace kind of the ancestry of how these people were connected or how they found out about what we were doing. They just did. And so that organic growth that you can't quite anticipate and you can't plan for is exactly what makes crowdfunding beautiful, and you can't really replicate that in any other way. So those were two moments that really stood out for us. Actually, I thought of a third. The third is right on the final day. We were getting very, very, very close to our target, and so we had confidence that we would get there. So those nerves were now gone. So I was watching the page, I was refreshing like a mad woman, and I happened to divert my attention for a moment to respond to an email or a comment on social media. And during that brief moment where I was working on something else, my son, who was also in the house and refreshing constantly, called out to me, "You made it, you're funded." And I was like, "What?" And so that was a favorite moment, because even though we were expecting it, when it actually happened, it was still a surprise, and it was exhilarating. It was a real adrenaline rush, and I just felt this huge overwhelm of gratitude, because so many people had come together to make this possible for us. And that's the beautiful thing about crowdfunding as well. One thing, I'll mention one other hard thing, and a top tip for people, is that we decided that we would do our campaign across a calendar month. We thought that would be nice and tidy, that would be easy to communicate, easy to manage, and we happened to choose the month of June. And we didn't really look at the calendar before deciding that. And if you go now and look at the month of June in the calendar, you will see that June starts and finishes with a long weekend and a public holiday. And that presented some challenges for us, because some of our main crowd who we were engaging with were professionals and in their organizations, and they were obviously not at their desks on those long weekends. But we managed to connect with them and engage them to the point that even though they were home and not at their desks, they still checked in and followed and supported throughout those long weekends. So my top tip is to check the calendar, check that there's nothing conflicting or that's going to get in the way or distract from your focus during your campaign period, and also to keep your campaign period tight. It can be tempting to make it longer because you think you might get more funding, but I would hazard to guess that you will have deadline magic. In other words, you'll have the majority of your funding come through near the end, no matter how long you choose it to be. So if you choose a 2-month long or 3-month long project, it's still going to come through at the end. So just make it shorter, make it tighter, and let the crowd do its thing. Thanks.